And since this is TMC and not Ninja Circuit, the assumption is level 18. So once both players sound off as ready, we can hit a countdown.
Ready?
Okay, both players are ready. Let's do a countdown. Let's say in 3, 2, 1, Tritris. Okay, by our perspective, oruc has started before Rachel, but that doesn't really make much difference on the end score. It just changes how we address pace and how that relates to how many lines each player has cleared up to this point.
And right off the bat, you see both players building in a little bit of a different formation.
Yeah.
Oruc seems to favor a more flat build, whereas Rachel seems to favor a more slanting build. Right
At
off
this
the
point,
start.
Rachel's board is significantly more clean, as oruc seems to be having a bit of trouble.
At the
Nothing
same
that he
time,
can't handle.
we have to remember Oruc started first, so Rachel isn't yet at the spot Oruc is at, so...
She is already ahead in score, though, so that does concretely mean that she is ahead in pace.
True enough.
Looks like oruc is getting a start to cleaning up his board. With a few ninjas, he can pretty quickly clean that up. I see a mistake there that might turn out to be costly.
This is quite a dire situation for Oruc to get out of. He's getting up pretty high, and he calls it there, and game 1 goes to Rachel after very clean building.
I can't help but think at least part of that had to do with the new speeds throwing him off a little bit.
I would say so.
Because it looked like when the board was lower, he had more control. Okay, Rachel has already won and is free to top out or keep playing, and chooses to top out. Oruc is already... You were not bad at Tritris, Oruc.
It's definitely tricky to get a hang of the new speeds, for sure, so...
Yeah, I definitely know it took me a while. It may or may not be relevant here, but when I started playing the new speeds on stream, the way that the game lagged for me felt completely different in a way that's really difficult to describe. It was better, but it was different, and that threw me off for a while.
Interesting. Alright, so do you have the hex code for game 2?
Yes, I do.
You're going to be a bit behind.
81
no worries, Rachel.
E676.
81 E676.
Yeah. Okay, both players are ready. Let's do a countdown. In 3, 2, 1, Tritris. And Oruc is already up. Did Oruc not have the seed?
No, not yet.
Then... Okay, I'm typing up some updates in chat since it at least seems like Rachel is a little bit delayed.
No worries.
Yeah, I can generate a new seed.
You don't have to generate a new seed. Oruc was just having an issue.
Did neither of them put it in?
Nope, they have it in.
Okay.
They're both ready now. So,
all right.
Countdown?
Let's do another countdown.
Yep.
3, 2, 1, Tritress. That's not supposed to be 3 and 21, but you get the idea.
And as before, Rachel is on mobile, so she has a little bit of a delay. So we'll see oruc start a little bit sooner. But,
yeah.
And there Rachel goes. So again, we see a difference in initial strategy.
People who view competitions in this game often might have noticed by now that it is actually incredibly rare for even a first placement of a piece to be the same, just because there's so much variety in play style between people, and there's a lot of individual placements that are almost, if not completely, equally viable to each other.
Yeah, and a lot of it comes down to personal preference.
Absolutely, yeah.
And a lot of it comes down to personal comfort as well. Like, if you don't like to, like, spam click very much, you may be more likely to take, like, a close to the center position over, like, an edge position.
It even depends on what speed you're comfortable tapping on a consistent basis.
Yep.
Because based on that, different options as far as placement and stacking are much more or less viable to do.
And at the moment, we see oruc have a couple holes in his build that he's going to want to clean, but it's pretty safe for now. He should be able to dig down.
Right now, the score is running at oruc at 76k to Rachel's 91k, as she slams down to Tritress, getting more points.
And once oruc clears out this row, he should be able to start. And he calls it there. He doesn't think he's going to be able to get that out. And game 2 goes to Rachel once again, after a couple unfortunate holes come out, and he's not able to clear just those couple lines that he needs to dig out the bottom of his build.
I should note to oruc that if you are, if you do feel a need to do so, you're more than welcome to take a little break or put some practice in or something like that, just because we want to see every player playing at their best.
And as you can see in chat,
to make that happen.
The reason for the little mistakes from oruc right now is he's losing DAS, which, if you don't know, is when you're holding a direction before a piece spawns, it actually spawns a little bit closer to the direction you want it to go, which helps with the movement of pieces because it gives you an extra frame or two to get it to one side or the other. So when you lose that frame, and sometimes you can't get it to where you want it, which...
Yeah, essentially how DAS works is you hit a button, the piece moves once, it waits a bit as you're holding it, eventually it starts moving the piece in whatever direction you're holding at 10 hertz. And when you let go of that, then it's a little bit tricky to adapt to, either by tapping or regaining DAS by holding again.
Yep. Alright, we're ready for the next seed.
Okay. Next seed, B58DCA.
So that again is B58DCA.
oruc is ready. Just waiting on Rachel at this point, and I see in chat.
She is ready.
Okay, Rachel is ready now.
And hit him with the countdown.
In 3, 2, 1. Tritress. Okay, before we get deep into this game, Ezra in chat made a good point that it is very flowy into itself, that it's depending on just managing through what you have as a current situation that plays a huge part in it, especially after you've started, as far as stacking is concerned.
Absolutely. And I noticed one big piece of personal preference is whether or not you like to slide or spin. Because in a lot of tucking situations, you're able to do either. And
that is true.
It depends on your personal comfort in the timing of both. So if you prefer the timing of sliding or the timing of spinning, will drastically change the way your build comes together and the way you choose to put pieces in their positions. So, as you can see from oruc there, with the pink J? What is it called?
Boomerang.
Okay.
It's a pink boomerang. I think of it as purple, but it's officially a pink boomerang.
Alright. As you can see from his placement of the pink boomerang, he decided to flip it in instead of sliding it in like he had earlier in the game. So
and another great example with that razor just then.
Yep.
Both players got a very strong start to this game. oruc lost a little bit of consistency cleaning up there, but managed to clean up this time, which is quite a good thing. Making a couple more mistakes now. Well, Rachel's board isn't comfortable, but is still completely clean.
There are definitely some dependencies that Rachel has to fill at the moment, though, that are going to be a little bit tricky. And
neither board is exactly pretty right now, but it's nothing that either of them can't handle.
That was a really great line piece slide from Rachel there. There was a big hole that she had to fill, and she, instead of wasting time with individual triangles, she just took it all out at once.
The small pieces, called ninjas, generally, are very useful to clean up holes, but you can't always rely on them to spawn to clean up holes. Unfortunately, oruc tops out, and Rachel takes the win. That will be the end of the match.
Good games to both players.
Absolutely.
It just seemed the difference was kind of off the start. Rachel had a little bit of a cleaner build and definitely more consistent. And it likely is an issue with the new speeds.
Yeah. It may often appear that a player is making poor stacking decisions just because that's the best that they can come up with in their head, but more often than not, it has something to do with the speed and them not being able to come up with something early enough to be able to make that adjustment in time, physically.
Yep. And sometimes it's even like they try and they're holding an extra button or something, and mechanically they just fail.
Input errors are very frustrating. I know them well.
They are frustrating. Absolutely.
Is Mople here?
You can play this one out at the moment. So, if you would like to.
Yeah, while we're waiting.
Because Mople is currently not streaming, so.
Mople did mention issues with transportation to get back home in time, so we might be a little while before the next match can happen.
Yep.
But that's okay. There's plenty to talk about.
And for the uninitiated, in Tritris, when you hold both the flip buttons at once, your piece does a full 180. which
I
can be...
really wanted to see Rachel fit that red boomerang into that red boomerang shaped hole, and I did see a way that it could happen. Sorry, I felt like I needed to mention that.
No, absolutely. But yeah, as I was saying, flipping a piece entirely 180 without having to do 2 clicks is incredibly useful for filling interestingly shaped holes, as you saw with the...
It's incredibly useful, and it can be buffered, but if it is not buffered, then it is a frame perfect input.
Yep.
So it's a lot less risky when you know that you can buffer it.
And a little bit of a miss there. She was trying to fit the purple boomerang, or pink boomerang. I see it as purple as well.
Yeah.
It's most useful in situations where it can be buffered. Yeah, of course.
Rachel is doing an impressively good job of minimizing the cost as far as pace is concerned of the holes that she has in her board.
True. She is going to have to figure out a way to dig down to that bottom layer so that she doesn't stay one from the bottom, because that can compound and make it much more difficult. And she misses the line flip there, or the razor flip. Yeah, my bad.
That's no problem. It's not terms that a lot of people know if they haven't been like deep in the community for a while.
Yeah, I've always thought about them as like their counterpart Tetris pieces.
Yeah, it's definitely easy to do that. In fact, the community as a whole did that for a while, but there were disagreements as which piece aligned to which Tetris piece.
Yeah.
So we kind of just decided to standardize it.
That makes sense. Well, I will definitely have to learn those. Very good digging from Rachel here.
Definitely, yeah. One of the hallmarks of a very good player in this game is being able to deal with uncomfortable situations without them spiraling into something even worse.
Especially higher up on the board, where the decisions have to basically be instantaneous. Or when the piece gets... When you place a piece to the next piece spawning, you have to already know where that piece is going to go.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
the executions have to be fast, the decisions have to be faster.
Yep. And she's found herself in another relatively uncomfortable situation here. And
yeah, there you see just how damaging just one moment of indecision can be.
That was an interesting strategy, though, to hang the yellow, what do you call them?
Pencil. Yellow and blue pencils.
Okay. It was an interesting decision to hang the yellow pencil off to the right side to, like, fill out what would have been another dependency, instead of probably what I would have done, which is try to tuck it, which is a little bit dangerous that high up. And she perfectly cleans the board, and she's all the way back on the bottom now. And
the worse shape your board is in the game, the more creative in general you have to be able to fix it, which makes it all that much more impressive to watch someone claw their way back from a difficult position in this game.
Absolutely. It's interesting that she waited for the razor to fill that hole, because there were a couple pieces that she had before that could have done so.
Oftentimes with something like that, it's either you have an idea in your head of which piece is going to go there, and it's safer to just wait for that piece to spawn to fix the hole, because indecision causes delays in execution and can spiral very quickly if you're not super confident in everything that you're about to do.
Absolutely. And the way I've always liked to think about that is it's better to make an 8 out of 10 decision instantly rather than hesitate on a 10 out of 10 decision.
Every time, yes. Quick decisions that don't get you killed are the best thing that you can do.
Absolutely. And practice is all about making those quick decisions just better. It's not necessarily about making faster decisions, even though that does come into it. But a lot of the time, it's just improving the fast decisions that you're already forced to make. And
my progression in the game has personally been I got very good at making good decisions on low speeds.
Ooh.
And then I couldn't have the time to think to do the same decisions on higher speed. And so I had to get used to that.
As a side note, that red boomerang flip to fit it in was great. But
yeah,
it looks like she's not going to be able to come back from this. And
very close to doing something else great with the razor, just sort of sliding it in there.
Just over 500k. And just, this is what we were talking about with the compounding issues. She had a couple holes that she tried to fill a little bit too quickly and made a mistake here, tried to flip that into this, and it didn't. So now these two lines are very difficult to fill without an excess of razors. And she didn't get an excess of razors.
Even on top of everything that we were already talking about, coming into a problem that you weren't expecting takes you out of autopilot, which slows your decisions and forces you to think harder about everything that you do, which you have to do faster.
Absolutely.
So it definitely snowballs if you let it.
Absolutely.
And once we get another ready from both players, then we can hit the countdown.
All right.
Ezra's ready. All right. Let's do the countdown. 3, 2, 1, Tritris. We should also mention that this is the first TMC that has been played in a while, as both players are getting started. We didn't manage to make it work with February's. This is actually essentially running as both February and March. Looks like Mople was buffering for a bit there, but just completely fine. Both players are clean. Both players doing well. Scoring at 100% rate. Looks like Ezra's board is a little bit uncomfortable, but got to take care of.
Does really well to slide in that yellow pencil.
Yeah. Mople electing to take a double there.
Yep. And Ezra is really going for the slant build right now, meaning building out the left, which is very safe side, a little bit of a misdrop, and a great fill to clear it up. I was very impressive.
That's the kind of creativity that I was talking about before. It's really impressive to see, and it's got to take so much game knowledge to be able to do something like that just so quickly.
And especially because, if you may not know, that is multiple spins and slides all happening pretty much at once.
And you see she tried to do something, again, very impressive there. She got most of the maneuver there done with the red boomerang at the left, but didn't get the 180 at the end.
Yep.
That's incredibly difficult to pull off, though.
I tend to call those slide spins, and they are, in my opinion, the most difficult mechanic to pull off.
They're
Where,
even more difficult when they end in a 180.
yeah, and that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Is when you need to move a piece and then slide it and then spin it into its proper rotation in the span of a frame, because it is a frame perfect mechanic. The
Well,
forbidden
on 18
phases.
speed,
Yep.
on 18 speed, I believe it's 3 frames actually,
Uh,
because
the entire motion is 3 frames, I think, and then but each individual uh, mechanic, I guess, is a single frame because you have to do multiple things at once. I may be wrong though.
I don't completely remember exactly what it was.
I
But,
absolutely could be wrong.
I think you are, because the 180 involved the piece dropping.
Oh, okay.
There are definitely situations that are exactly what you described. I just don't think that was one of them.
Fair enough. As we can see, both players are keeping pretty clean builds, but Ezra has much better pace going on. Because she's...
Mople has a bit of a problem there. It looks like tapping speed might be a little bit restrictive.
Yep.
So Mople is doing
Ooh,
as much as they can to keep it safe, but
this is
looks
going to
like
be a very tricky situation to get out of, and he calls it quits there. Doesn't
the
believe
speed
he'll be
was
able
a
to get out of it.
little bit overwhelming, and Ezra takes the W for game 1.
Yep, with some very impressive mechanics high up on the board. All right, GG's, or well, GG. On to game 2. So if you have the code,
I shall generate it now. 095661. All
09,
numbers.
say it again.
095661.
095661.
Yes. We got it ready from Ezra.
And we got it ready for Mople. So,
all right. Time to count it down. 3, 2, 1. Tritris. Tritris. It didn't let me send the exclamation point because I was sending messages too quickly. I got too good at this. Ezra
we have
has started playing before Mople this time.
And a really interesting starting decision, putting the square on the right side.
That is prioritizing building a well early.
Yep. That was also
Definitely
a fantastic forbidden phase.
Yeah,
getting the purple boomerang and pink boomerang.
That was very impressive. That's something that I might have seen, but definitely would not have gone for.
Absolutely. But at the same time, it wasn't that risky of a maneuver because it was still low on the board and still very early in the game. So it could have been recovered from, but still, to pull it off is impressive.
That was a nice move with the cookie piece by Mople there.
Yes, it was. And good quick thinking as well.
Mm-hmm. Both players are maintaining 100% right now. But Ezra is ahead in score a little bit due to the fact that she started playing first.
Yep.
Mople had a little bit of discomfort in his board there that he addressed with the ninjas.
And he elects for the double again. I wonder if he accidentally did that or if he was just trying to lower his board a little bit to give him some room to breathe.
I could definitely see it being either, because I've dealt with both, and a lot of times they can look almost identical.
Absolutely.
The result, regardless, is that the board is still clean right now.
But it does put Mople behind a little bit in pace.
Yeah.
Because Ezra is still at 100% and Mople is at 71% at the moment.
It is looking to me like Mople is playing for safety above anything else right now because he just took a single to lower the board.
Yep, I would agree with that. But trying to play safe while also not sacrificing too much scoring.
Yeah.
And it might pan out in his favor right now, as Ezra has a few holes.
Inaccessible holes.
Inaccessible holes, absolutely. That's a very interesting decision to create another hole. It may have been a mistake thinking it was
That was very good with the cookie there.
This is a tricky situation to get out of because almost every line has a hole for Ezra right now. So it's going to take a Herculean effort to dig this out all the way down to the bottom. But it is
She's
possible.
got a good start on it, though.
Absolutely.
And if I know anything about digs, momentum is important. As Mople is topping out, unfortunately, that gives game 2 to Ezra, and she doesn't even need to complete the dig.
But I believe she's going to anyway, just to flex. Oh, is this 150? Yeah, it's definitely right around there is when I'm playing by myself is where I always seem to. If I pass like 24 lines, I can generally get to like 45 pretty consistently.
I very much appreciate, by the way, Ezra finishing off that game with a left well tritris.
Yeah. And with the completed dig, which is very impressive. So,
GG's to both players. On to game 3. The seed is FF2 9FC.
FF2 9FC.
What we were talking about before, as far as playing it safe, that is actually very oftentimes we got it ready from both players. I'll keep this going once we've started. Countdown 3, 2, 1. Tritris. Okay, as I was saying before, playing it safe is basically making an investment for mistakes, where you make basically you take one small hit to your pace to avoid later much larger hits to your pace or just topping out completely. And oftentimes it's actually a very good decision to make.
This is a very awkward and rough position for Ezra to be in this early, and it's going to take a lot of razors to get out of it. But it appears it's possible. Still very difficult position at the moment.
Taking some essentially roof burns there definitely makes it a bit lighter on her, though.
In the meantime, Mople is having a very clean build so far and has had no major mistakes and no burning, still at 100%.
And has the lead at 45k to Ezra's 15k.
Despite being about 5 seconds behind. Because of the difference in starts.
A very good split well tritris by Ezra there to basically negate the end of that cleanup.
And did finally clean it up too. So you can start to aggressively build. But is still fairly behind.
Mople with a hole just getting filled in by that ninja there. Otherwise, could have been pretty dangerous if the piece hadn't spawned in time.
Ezra electing to fill the holes rather than take the Tritress there, probably a good decision at that high on the board. But certainly an interesting decision.
Sometimes, actually, just getting the Tritress to lower the board can be the safer play.
Exactly.
It really depends on a lot of stuff. I think that particular decision was a bit of a show that she's confident in being able to handle the speed that she's playing at right now.
And the height as well.
Yeah. Unfortunately, her board is very uncomfortable right now.
And so is Mople's. There's a very large hole on the right side, but he does have quite a lead. So, depending on what happens from here,
Ezra seems to be doing a good job of cleaning up her board. Mople is having a bit of trouble, but still has a chance.
Yep. And he couldn't get that yellow pencil all the way to the left, and I do believe that's going to spell his end. So Ezra right now is about 10k behind. If she gets another Tritress, that should be... Yep, and there
that
it is.
That is game and match. GG's to both players.
Very impressive from Ezra to get out of that early disaster that she put herself in, frankly.
Impressive plays from Mople, too. We've said it a couple of times already, but these new speeds are not the easiest to get used to, especially short notice and with very little warm-up.
Exactly. And
Rachel is letting Ezra know that either player is free to completely play out any of the games that happen because comp leaderboards have been reset on account of new speeds.
All right, so they're both ready?
All right. Countdown in 3, 2, 1. Tritress.
And a preliminary yes for this series is that we're not going to really see very much struggle on the 18 part.
I think we might, but I think it will be handled rather quickly when it arises.
Yeah. That's what I mean. I feel like both these players are good enough to dig out of any issues they cause for themselves at 18 speed.
Mistakes will definitely still happen, but they're much more easily fixed.
Yep. So, right off the bat, we see Ezra has a very clean build, and Rachel is a little bit dependent, but cleans it out nicely. Had a little bit of a hole going
Rachel
on.
played that very intelligently with the ninjas to avoid needing to do a ridiculously difficult maneuver with the razor.
Yep.
Nice razor 180 by Rachel. Both players maintaining 100% with clean boards right now.
We are seeing a little bit of a trend from Rachel in that she's leaving the left side more open.
That definitely makes sense when you're playing at speeds that are a little bit more difficult to handle, because it is harder to get pieces all the way to the left than it is to get them all the way to the right. And you want some safety in being able to get difficult pieces over to the left if you can.
Yep. Also, the previous Tritress from Rachel was very impressive because it took a double flip, which is you flip it one way and then you flip it right back, just moving down one row.
That was a very good double flip like you were mentioning before, but with a red boomerang at the far left that Ezra just pulled off.
I unfortunately didn't notice.
It was very impressive.
Nice. Both players still have very clean builds right now.
And both still keeping it 100%, which is very impressive considering some of the tricky situations that both of them have gotten themselves into and out of at this point.
Ezra is about 11 seconds ahead because of the difference in start time, though. So
yeah,
the difference in score is strictly because of that.
Yeah. It is still worth mentioning, though, Rachel is currently at 182K to Ezra's 205K.
Interesting decision to seeing that she had the razors coming up to create another hole that she could just instantly fill because there was already one that needed filling. So there was
Rachel, on
no
the other hand, creating an inaccessible hole and then a couple more problems on top of it. This could actually be very dangerous.
especially with that overhanging razor not being able to get it all the way to the right, and she calls it there.
Yep, that's a top out.
That
That
is
it looks like one mistake spiraled, like we were talking about earlier. It's very hard to keep from happening, especially if it results in an overhang.
absolutely, and especially an overhang with a long piece like the razor.
And Ezra chooses to top out there despite getting to almost 300K on perfect pace.
And as we can see, the compounding mistakes, it's very easy to tell because the tritress percentage upon top out will generally still be very high. Because
Yeah.
when the mistakes compound, it gets harder and harder to even clear a single line.
As a concept itself, though, sometimes it can just be smarter to cut your losses and sort of reset your board as opposed to trying to keep your pace as high as you possibly can.
Yeah,
I know that, at least historically, that has actually been a problem that Rachel has specifically focused on. I personally think that she's gotten a lot better about that, but it is worth noting.
all right. So
129 perfect lines and then misflipped a ninja to accidentally take a single. Ezra
dang,
says that
that's pain.
hurts.
All right, so game two.
I will grab another seed. F5 44 C6.
F5 44 C6.
Yes. Okay, Ezra's ready. Rachel also ready. So let's do the countdown. 3, 2, 1. Tritress.
All right, so going into game two, Ezra has a 1 game lead in the series.
Also starting a bit before Rachel, but by less of a margin this time.
Yep.
It's much closer in time with each other.
Only about a 3 second difference, maybe 2.5 second difference.
Something like that, yeah.
Whereas last match, it was right about 10 seconds, 11 seconds. So much, much closer this time. And both players off to a very good start, though, again, we see a little bit of a difference in strategy. There's a hole that Rachel has to fill, but she does so cleanly.
I see Ezra pushing down, which Rachel does appear to be doing sometimes, but not nearly as steadily as Ezra is, which is pushing their timing even further apart than it started at.
Yep. Which does make sense, though, seeing as Ezra is so comfortable on level 19 speed. Level 18 speed probably seems like a piece of cake.
I'm not sure I would go that far, but it's definitely a little bit. It's something that I do a lot, even when I'm not the best at handling a speed, just because I get impatient when I already know what I'm planning to do.
That's also a very fair point, because I have found myself doing that too. A very interesting chain of moves there to use the red boomerang.
That was very good disaster avoidance by Rachel there.
Absolutely. And there are some unfillable holes for... Nope, they're all fillable now, actually.
Yeah, they are. Now they're not.
It's an
Now they are.
interesting decision to not flip that. It was probably a mistake, but not flipping that yellow pencil to fill that hole on the bottom left might prove very costly, because it's taking a lot of digging to get back down.
With the game how it is right now and the new speeds, I think personally that survival probably plays the biggest role, but that definitely could become costly if this game goes all the way down to the wire.
Yep. And that dig alone dropped Urza down from 100% to 63% Tritris, so very far behind on pace compared to the
Rachel
still
is
100% of
yep,
Rachel.
and actually has the score lead.
Despite being very slightly behind on time.
In fact, that lead, as it stands right now, Rachel has 205,000 to Ezra's 181K.
So about and it's about 25k difference in score.
Ezra, with a board that doesn't technically have any holes, but is not comfortable. Now it's got holes
That was a very
that she manages
impressive
to fill
razor.
somehow.
That was a very impressive razor spin. I honestly don't even
Certainly
know
was.
how it happened, but it was very cool looking, and I'm gonna have to watch that back and learn how to do that, because that was awesome.
That's another example of something that like I saw last second but never would have gone for.
Yeah, like being able to think of the correct inputs in time to actually pull it off is very impressive, especially that high up on the board.
Yeah.
And despite the cool
Nice
factor,
slide with that razor there too.
uh, Ezra is still pretty far behind, and that difference is about 45k now. Now it's even higher. It's about 60k difference in score, just because Rachel is keeping a very clean board, still at 100% despite 42 lines in. Very impressive showing from Rachel in game 2.
Ezra's board is finally starting to look mostly comfortable again. And now is. So they are both on equal footing again, with Rachel still significantly ahead in score as a result of everything that happened there. That's the type of thing that could happen to any player at any time, though.
Absolutely.
So it's not something that can't be turned back around.
Yep.
Both players are capable of getting into situations like that and getting out of them. So this game could go on for a while with a lot of that. It could go with a lot of very impressive consistency. You don't know until it happens.
There is definitely a noticeable difference in the score based on pushing down, though.
Oh, definitely. It creeps up very steadily over time.
So, And it looks like, despite the like relatively major mistakes early on in the game, Ezra has kind of caught up in score.
She does
Though
elect to take a double instead of a treacherous there to address some of the holes, which now are all filled. Still some uncomfortable situations there. Managing, though,
and
and
Rachel
treacherous ready.
is electing for just the very comfortable, slow and steady idea where just taking the first option, kind of planning ahead a couple moves, not getting ahead of herself, and just
Rachel is
focusing
doing
on
a great job of keeping the board low.
exactly, and just staying very clean, never creating too much of a dependency with a risky move. Just taking the first thing that comes to mind and just going with it. And it's currently working out for the moment.
That predicament with the red boomerang shaped hole might prove to be a bit of an issue, but those holes are very accessible, except for the one at the left there. So this might end up as a dirty treacherous setup for Rachel. Ezra's board getting a bit uncomfortable again with an inaccessible hole.
So both players have inaccessible holes at the moment, but Ezra has a much more awkward one.
I would definitely prefer to have Rachel's board at the moment
Yep,
because now that inaccessible hole has become accessible as a result of exactly what I was mentioning before. And it looks like she's setting up for a left well.
it does indeed. And she does take it to transfer that well back over to the right side. Very impressive.
Playing proactively to prepare for that well transfer as well.
Yep. And as she did that, Ezra also cleaned up her board. So both players building with a clean board, but Rachel is about 55k ahead in score.
It is clear at this point neither player is going to give up this point easily.
Very true. The difference in treacherous percentage, though, is fairly telling for how each player has gotten to this point. Rachel still being at 94%, whereas Ezra is at 73%.
That is telling to how much less time Rachel has actually spent in a difficult situation in this game than Ezra has.
Yep. Very telling of a little bit cleaner build and just decision making in general for this particular seed.
A little bit more stability, a little bit more efficiency, and unfortunately, it looks like Ezra's board is getting uncomfortable again.
Yep.
Absolutely something that she can survive, but it's getting to the point that she may have to hope to just survive significantly longer than Rachel in general to win this game.
Yeah.
It's definitely not set in stone yet, but it's looking like it might go that way.
The difference in score is about 70k now.
Yeah. As the gap widens even a little bit further as Rachel gets another treacherous.
Yep.
There was really no good place for that cookie on Ezra's board.
It definitely is looking very dangerous, to say the least, for Ezra right now. Getting quite high with a few unfillable holes. That's a
She's,
great razor drop.
yeah, I
Two
saw
of
that
them.
earlier when there were holes beneath it, and I actually would have gone for that, but it wouldn't have been smart. It was smarter to wait for it exactly like Ezra did, actually.
Yep. And despite the phenomenal digging of Ezra, once again, the difference in score is about 110k.
Yep. Rachel stands at 784k to Ezra's 674k.
So, barring any major mistakes from Rachel, it does seem like she has to just play safe and smart. Basically, not topping out should be good enough to take game 2. But we are very far from the end of it.
There is also a matter that is very important and is coming up soon, actually. That is the transition to 19 speeds. As we speak, Ezra is at 124 lines, 6 away from the speed transition, and Rachel is at 116 lines, 14 away from the transition.
So not only will Ezra get to the faster speeds sooner, she also has quite a score deficit. So it's going to make it exponentially harder to come back.
That said, the dynamic of what either player is capable of achieving might change quite a bit, depending on how well either of them are able to play 19 at the moment.
Absolutely. And Rachel currently has an unfillable hole. Now it's fillable. Creeping up on.
She turns it into a left well.
It does seem
a left well that can smoothly transition to a right well.
It does seem she's very prone to doing that. She's very comfortable with left wells.
Ezra, in a decision that we haven't seen from her up to this point, actually elected to take a single for safety.
It is an interesting. She did that twice, actually. Once again after you mentioned it, because I think she wanted to leave a line there to get an easier tritress later, where she could have easily flipped a razor into position to get a double. Instead, she chose to elect for a single.
Rachel also taking 2 singles there, 3, to keep the board in a favorable position. It looks like neither player is completely comfortable with these new higher 19 speeds.
Very impressive razor flip there from
a little bit of a missed input of the ninja by Ezra there. Looks like things are getting really dangerous for her.
Rachel takes a double to lower the board a little bit, just trying to survive, and Ezra tops out at 863k, and that means Rachel will take game number 2.
With a score difference of about exactly 100k.
Very impressive from both players. Both players making it to level 19 speed. The first time we've seen that in this tournament so far. Let's see how much higher Rachel can go, and she can't quite get the stars over the right side to clear out that one last line. She stops at 967,000. Very impressive.
Very impressive by both players. We haven't seen any gameplay on this exact speed in competition before.
Very impressive 85% tritress percent for Rachel. And honestly, respectable 66%, despite the very rough start and relatively common mistakes from
Cleanup
Ezra.
in particular was very impressive by Ezra. That's something that once it happened a few too many times to me, I would have lost my head.
Oh, absolutely. Burning is just a lot of fun? Okay.
Keeping your cool when things don't go perfectly is very hard, especially in comp.
Absolutely.
Burning is fun.
It's
more fun when it doesn't have stakes.
Yeah, but it does have stakes right now, which makes it all the more impressive. And there was
Okay,
quite a few situations where the board was looking almost unsavable, and you brought it all the way back to make it clean again. But
yeah.
unfortunately, just too little too late. And on to game 3.
The new seed is 052C86.
So again, that is 052C86.
And the score of the match so far is 1-1, just as a reminder to everyone.
Yep, heading into game 3. So it has appeared that the player with the more early mistakes has been the one to top out before the other in
That's
both
very
games
common,
so far.
even just among games that an individual plays, like just at different times. The earlier you make a mistake, the less you really allow yourself to get into the flow of the game.
Yep.
Okay, Rachel needs to take a minute to keep her nerves down. That's
Makes
totally
sense.
understandable.
Take a few breaths. It's always bracing, shall we say, to have to at least make it above 100 lines. So for
Yeah,
me at least, I can't imagine.
Rachel's nerves are definitely also very understandable here because I really hope I don't make it worse by mentioning it, but this is a very good chance for her to win TMC for the first time.
Nice. Definitely on track to. Both players tied in the series right now.
Yeah,
And Ezra doesn't want to take a break. Just wants to keep the flow going.
yeah, keep it warmed up. That's definitely something to do when you are less nervous, or even sometimes when you are nervous.
Yeah, for personally, I have to keep playing. I can't take a break.
Yeah,
I just need to keep myself moving.
I definitely understand that. It's definitely worth noting just how
Ooh,
high caliber the players in this final are. Uh, we've mentioned that on old speeds, Ezra had a 1.9, though that is not at all to take away from Rachel with her 2 million.
very, very impressive. But it's the old speeds. We don't need to
Yeah,
talk about
on the
those
new
anymore.
speeds, on the new speeds, Ezra does have the record, but both players have shown immense levels of skill and dedication to this game.
Absolutely.
I will say, I forgot to mention it earlier. Something else that even makes it more difficult to keep your pace up, and Rachel is ready here uh, whenever Ezra is done. Something else that keeps it very, very difficult to get back on track once you've made a mistake is that it can essentially ruin the shape of your board and make it less receptive to new pieces, which makes it that much easier to make another mistake.
Absolutely. And a lot of the time, uh, that awkward shaped board not only is less receptive, it also requires better mechanics and much
Yeah,
better timing, uh,
absolutely.
which gets increasingly complex as the mistakes compound.
All right, both players are ready. Let's head into game three in three, two, one. Tritris. Yet again, Ezra starting before Rachel, evidently because of her mobile delay.
Yep.
With less than a completely comfortable start, actually. She manages to fix it up, but that was not the smoothest start that we've seen from her.
True. But as you said, managed to clean it up and now has a pretty clean board moving forward.
Yeah. A
Whereas
little bit of a weird shape, but definitely manageable.
whereas Rachel started off very clean, electing to take a couple single holes that are easily fillable rather than compounding an issue. That was a great cookie flip into
Very good crisis management there.
a very awkward hole, a very big hole that if that cookie flip did not work out would be very difficult to fill.
Both players playing very smart right now.
Yep. Interesting decision from oh, that yellow
Yep.
pencil flip, that was awesome. That was very cool.
Yeah, I could tell she was waiting that out, and I was just hoping that it would work.
That was very well played.
Both players managing to keep their 100% rate. All things considered, very impressive from both of them.
Yep. And you can see the difference in score 114, 151 to 114 flat. That little bit of difference is because Ezra is pushing down and Rachel is not. So it's a
Yep.
very small difference in score, but it can compound, like we were saying last game, into
It theoretically can make a sizable difference.
a few
Most often, that
thousand.
difference isn't necessary, but it can play a part.
And it has played a part in Tetris before.
Yeah.
I believe Green Tea won a game in 2017, I believe, or 2018 maybe, because of the difference in pressing down.
I very much enjoy watching Green Tea. He is delightful.
He's great. His smile is absolutely contagious.
Yes.
Very safe building from Rachel so far, but it's working out in her favor because there's been no real issues. That's going to be a very awkward Tritris to manage, especially with that above it. She elects to take the double to clear it out, to just get it out of the way.
Very smart decision.
I would tend to agree. Both players.
And you saw something earlier from Rachel there, which unfortunately led into that, but it is a good example of a good strategy that some players use a lot of the time. Is if they don't have a good spot for a piece, they might place it in a way that some holes form in the second rightmost column, which, although it may look very uncomfortable, it almost completely assures that if you keep your well clean, you can always access those holes no matter what.
Yes, that tends to be where I drop pieces that I just don't know where to put them because I know the holes will be able to be filled.
Yeah.
But at the moment, neither player has 100% Tritris anymore.
And Ezra actually holds the lead at the moment.
Yep.
321k to 288k that Rachel has.
But we have to remember Ezra did start about 11 seconds before.
And has been pushing down.
And has been pushing down. And at the same time, has done less digging. I believe that's only one line that she's had to clear without a Tritris.
I don't know, I'm bad at math.
Very interesting split well Tritris.
Split wells are so satisfying.
From Rachel. That was very cool to see.
And a nice shifted 180 that Ezra did with that cookie there. Both players pulling off a lot of very impressive adjustments.
Yes, indeed.
That is something that both of them are very talented at.
Unfortunately for Rachel, there is going to be a little bit of a hidden pace just because she's going to have to use some some stars to fill that square on the bottom, but she's done so pretty comfortably. It is getting kind of high right now.
Yeah. Technically, there is nothing affecting pace yet. Oh, that pencil almost got in there, but a little bit of an input error is very, very dangerous this high up in the board.
Electing to take the single to try and
Essentially,
lower a little
roof
bit.
burning to gain access to these holes more comfortably.
Yep. That's a very interesting decision to not burn in favor of getting holes filled underneath it.
And it looks like it cost her with being unable to get the yellow pencil all the way to the left.
It does
And
indeed.
with that, Ezra takes game 3.
Yep.
You are free to keep playing or top out, whatever you want. She chooses to top out.
That missed pencil, yeah, it was rough.
It was, yeah. That would have been such a beautiful phase. I mourned it as it didn't happen.
It was definitely a spicy decision to not choose to burn, instead, like filling holes instead of burning the top 2 layers, though.
Yeah. That was as a result of the missed phase, though.
Yeah.
All right, I shall grab another code. The
Good
code
game from
is
both players, by the way.
yes, absolutely. The code is DED56F.
DED56F.
And I'm reminding both players again, if you need to take a break to manage nerves or anything,
Maybe get a
you
drink of
absolutely
water.
feel free to. Yeah. Is that already for me? Okay, yes.
Yep.
Yes, it is.
If Ez is ready as well, I would assume that means ready.
This is potentially match point for Ezra. She is currently leading 2-1.
And
Both players are ready.
just so
3.
everyone knows, this is a best of 5. So if Ezra wins this next game, he wins the series. So.
Yes. 3, 2, 1. Tritress. Good luck to both players. Let's hope to see a long and hard-fought game here, because those are the most fun.
Rachel actually starts about a second before Ezra this time.
Maybe she was reading chat to start.
Maybe. Or maybe Ezra intentionally waited a couple seconds. So
Also a possibility. It might also have had something to do with the pause between me typing out the 3 and the 2.
Yeah, maybe.
But regardless, they actually seem to be very on pace with each other as far as the stacking is concerned right now.
Rachel has made a couple awkward decisions, though.
Yeah. No explicit holes, but definitely not comfortable.
Cleans it up very well, though.
Yeah.
Should be able to clean this and get a perfect board again. And does.
Yep.
Right into 2 tritresses. Very impressive. Both players right about the exact same pace.
And Rachel missed a 180 with the pink boomerang there, but that's not going to be too costly. It's just
It
two
does
extra lines.
it does cost 2 lines though. So dropped from 100% to 82%.
This early on in the game, that's almost nothing.
Yep, absolutely.
Ezra, on the other hand, is keeping up that perfect pace.
It also seems like so far Ezra is trying to keep or is building flatter this game than in the previous couple games. I don't know if that was a conscious decision or just a force of the pieces, but
I think it's also a consequence of how low or high the board is, because you see as it's getting higher, it's getting a little bit more slanted as well. Both players keeping it clean. Ezra's board a little bit uncomfortable. Nothing unmanageable though. Yep, like I said, it's now it's a little bit more uncomfortable again, and now
and
it's good again.
Rachel has a few holes that she needs to fill, which are kind
Yeah,
of awkward. Does well to open up spots for it, but does not get stars early enough. Make it easy. Should still make it out of this.
manages to clear a double without ninjas, which is not the easiest thing to do and very impressive.
Very true. Burns and keeps the hole open.
On the other side, Ezra is a little bit uncomfortable again, manages to fill up that hole.
This could be another cool split well Tritris for Rachel setup
It
here.
definitely could. That requires
Ooh, and she just misses it, but does get a Tritris regardless.
yeah,
And drops it all the way down.
it might have been her plan to begin with.
Also very true. That was also a great decision. Instead of sacrificing that one line on the bottom, to flip the star to the
Yeah,
right.
turns it into an alternating well tritris that she doesn't even have to alternate. She just has to make one rotation
Yep.
at the bottom.
So currently the scores are 126k for Rachel to 320k for Ezra.
You dropped 100K off of Rachel's score there.
Did
It's 240 now.
Did I say? I thought I said 2. If I
I
did not,
heard you say 100.
I thought I said 200. Anyway,
That might have been my mistake. I don't know.
no worries. If I did, I'm glad you corrected me. Yeah, so just so we're clear, 271k now to 341k from Ezra.
Yeah, and Ezra got a very good alternating well tritris there, which on any speed higher than like 12, that's not a given when you try to go for it.
Absolutely. Also very impressive is Ezra is still at 100% Tritris rate.
I think Rachel was trying to go for an absolutely ridiculous set of phases there with that pink boomerang. I would have tried it too, but it didn't work out.
Should be able to clear that line to open up the hole though.
Yeah.
Chooses to close it immediately again. Just because of the piece that came.
That pink boomerang shaped hole is proving to have snowballed a little bit as far as pace is concerned.
Yep. but hasn't spelled the end yet. Certainly making it awkward.
Ezra, on the other hand, still with perfect pace, though the board doesn't look super pretty right now.
It's still very manageable, though. It doesn't look
Yeah.
perfect, but it's manageable.
Rachel's working her way down to that hole, managing to fill up part of it.
Piece by piece, just little by little. Not rushing it, not trying to pull off any hero maneuvers. And finally gets all the way back down to the second to last burn. Should be able to clear that out pretty easily.
Yep.
And does.
And now all her holes are filled.
Yep.
That was a nice move with the red boomerang by Rachel there. Ezra's still managing to play it clean. The board looks good right now.
And that extended digging phase from Rachel has put her well behind Ezra right now. Ezra at 571k, still at 100%, whereas Rachel is at 405k at 61%. So quite far behind, especially considering that she started first this game. So at the same time, Ezra has more lines, has cleared more lines, just because...
And both of them are more than halfway to 19 speed as well. So the more comfortable part of this game isn't going to last all that much longer.
True. It may very well come down to who makes the first mistake on 19. Because at 19 speed, the scores are such that Rachel very well could get back into it if we see an early mistake from Ezra.
It is virtually always possible that one player tops out early and then the other can take the win by lining out at high speeds.
Absolutely.
Even if they start out well behind.
Absolutely. It's always a question of, honestly, consistency, not perfection. Just staying alive.
Yep, despite the score disparity, this is still anyone's game.
Having said that, it is about 180k, 190k difference in score, which is a very big lead.
That was a nice save with the blue pencil by Ezra there. That could have been a very difficult hole to deal with.
Despite the early issues from Rachel, she's built very cleanly recently and got the forbidden phase with the red boomerang.
And Ezra currently has a wide open pit in her board.
A little bit of a misdrop with a pink boomerang from Rachel makes a very awkward board. She's handling it so far right as a drought of stars come, unfortunately, though. So there's quite a few holes she has to fill.
Both players want a better board right now.
Absolutely. But like we mentioned before, a situation like this does favor Ezra just because of the difference in score. So even if both players top out at the same number of lines, Ezra's higher score will give her the win.
It looks like Ezra has turned that enormous pit in her board into a center well, which she got a Tritris out of, which is ridiculous.
That's crazy. In the meantime, Rachel is just struggling to survive at the moment. Going to be very difficult to. That was a great. I don't believe she'll be able to get anything over to the left, and
Nope.
she can't, and that will spell the end.
Oh, that was so close to being fixed, but no luck on that.
A little bit too high.
With that, Ezra wins this TMC, which I'm not even particularly sure which month's TMC this technically is, but congratulations.
Congratulations to our champion.
And we would like to see you play this one out.
Absolutely. Let's see if we can get a top out for the champion.
I think she might have changed her mind on that after she heard me say that. Extra little challenge.
Good games. Rachel?
Very, yes. That was very impressive to watch.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you absolutely can.
Yeah, go for it. All right.
Managing to keep the pace that she has at this point is very difficult. Both players have played very well through this match, and every player has played very well throughout this entire tournament. So, GG's and congrats to literally everyone who participated.
Very true, especially considering the higher speeds. So this is, like we've mentioned before, first tournament with these higher speeds.
Speaking of higher speeds, Ezra hits 19 speed.
Gets a couple Tritruses right off the bat. Still has a very clean, very manageable build. That is a little bit awkward, though.
Yes, it is.
Likes to take the single.
That's where tapping speed comes into play, and you see the consequences of it.
Yep. Can't get that pencil over, I don't believe. And he can't get anything else over the top of it. Very unfortunately.
Unfortunate, but very well played.
Very well played. Ends with 943k. Very impressive. GG's. Very quick. Absolutely.
Very nearly a maxed out.
Yep. About a Tritris and a line. Tritris and 2 lines away from a max out, I believe.
Definitely probably would have gotten it if she had managed to get those pieces to the left.
Absolutely. That yellow pencil getting stuck on the ledge.
Getting pieces to the left is such a difficult thing on high speeds, though, and pencils are the biggest example of that because the way that they spawn, they actually spawn one lower than ninjas and one further to the right, essentially, than any of the 2 wide pieces.
Yep.